A warm welcome to one and all who have gathered here. I am Srinjay Rai. I am pursuing BSc MSc Forensic Science at National Forensic Sciences University, Gandhinagar, and I am also a volunteer at Applied Forensic Research Sciences. Today we have gathered here to discuss on a topic, a very interesting topic which is known as tampering in documents. In this video, we're going to understand what is tampering, what is documents, and we're going to study each and every part in detail. So basically in this video we are going to cover what is tampering, what is alteration and their types. And under their types we have addition, we have deletion, we have page substitution, we have overwriting, and finally it is also at the same time very important to know how you can detect the wrong. So if we say that tampering is something which is wrong, then how will we detect it? By using certain instruments, certain methods. So we are going to study those also in detail. Moving on to the first part, what is tampering and alteration? Tampering basically means changing anything in a document. A document is basically something which has got symbols, which has got alphabets, letters, numbers, etc. So something which is changed in a document with a very illegal intention, that is known as tampering. Whereas alteration is also then changing something in a document, but you do not have a very illegal intention behind it. For example, you are writing in an exam paper and you change something. Okay, so you have written one line and then you change something. That is not a very illegal intention. That is something you're writing because you probably have missed out, so you're adding something else. So that is alteration. However, on the same scenario, suppose probably your teacher has given you the mark sheet and you change the marks over there. That is tampering because that has got a very illegal intention behind it. So tampering is also known as spoilage in legal terms, and it's mainly found in, you'll observe mainly in checks where you insert letters, numbers, etc. Wills, contracts, mark sheets, tickets, receipts. In all these documents you'll find mainly tampering happens in these documents. Moving on to the types of alteration. Now, under the types of alteration, we have four basic types. We have addition, we have deletion, we have page substitution, and we have overwriting. Addition is basically inserting any word, any alphabet, any letter or number in a document, as the name suggests. Deletion, then the name itself says the meaning. It's removing a page or letters or alphabets or numbers from a document. Page substitution means there is one page which is already there in a document. You're removing that page and you are placing another page over there. That is page substitution. And overwriting means something which is already written over there in a document and you are writing something else on the top of it. Suppose you have written that my name is Srinjay Rai. On the top of it I am writing I study at NFSU Gandhinagar. That is what is known as overwriting. Now basically we're going to study a little bit in depth of addition. Addition is basically, as I said, it's the insertion of any word, any digit, any number, anything. It's inserting, it's adding something to a document. That is known as addition. How you can do addition? It's done by two ways, interlineation or page insertion. Interlineation, as the name suggests, inter means between and lineation comes from the word lines. So between two lines you are adding something. That is known as interlineation. And page insertion, it means you are inserting some other page to an already existing document. That is known as page insertion. How will you detect addition? Basically, when you're writing something else in a document which is already there, suppose the space is less, so you try to fit your letters in that minimum space which is available. So that is how you can detect addition. The size of the letters decreases over there. So that is one way of detecting the alpha addition. Size of letter and spacing and pen strokes. Also examining the security margins. It's mainly for page insertion where you insert some other page. So when we compare the the questioned page with the authenticated document, you'll find that you may find that the watermarks are not there. You may find the thickness of the paper is different. You may find that the size of the paper is different. So in that way you will understand that there has an addition that has taken place. Also, when you're writing, the size of the the pen pressure, the thickness of the pen, that also varies. If you're adding something, the handwriting, if it's different, that is also something which is also a very crucial factor in detecting addition. And also the style of letters, the slant and everything, those are the very crucial factors which help in detecting addition. And mainly the examples are, you add 0 to checks, or you change some, like suppose changing 1 to 4, 1 to 7, 3 to 8, 0 to 8. These are the main ways in which addition is done. If you see over here, the pen pressure, the thickness, they are different. Okay, space was not there, so letters have been tried to fit over here. So these are ways in which addition is done. As I mentioned already, interlineation is basically inserting a line between two lines. Okay, so that is known as interlineation. And how will you study that? By seeing the color of the ink, by checking the pen pressure, by checking the size of letters and everything, by checking the sequence of the crossing strokes. Crossing strokes basically, suppose if you, I'll give an example. Suppose when you write T, we write like this, T like this, and then we put a stroke. That is known as a crossing stroke. So many people write T like this, and many people will suppose many people will write T like this, and many people will write T like this. I'll just use a pen. T, some people write like this, and some people write like this. So these are the ways in which we then detect addition. Moving on to pagination, which is also, as I mentioned, inserting another page to an existing document. That is known as pagination. And how will you detect detect pagination? You will be checking the color of the paper, the shade of the paper, the thickness of the paper, the size of the paper, the watermarks, if there are any watermarks on the paper or not, how the letters have been printed, whether they're in the same format or not, how the papers have been binded, whether there have been any staple marks or anything else there on the paper or not. In these ways, the page numbers as well. In these ways, we then detect pagination or page insertion. Moving on to the next broad category of alteration, which is deletion. As I mentioned, deletion is basically removing something which is already there in the document. It can be a page, it can be alphabets, it can be numbers, letters, anything. And how are deletions done? As we discussed for addition, it is done by interlineation and pagination. For deletion, we have erasures and obliterations. Now we are going to study erasures in little detail. Erasures are basically, you all must have used an eraser rather, sorry. So eraser is basically, for what purpose do we use? We use it for erasing of something. So erasures are basically erasing something either by rubbing or by scraping or wiping out. Rubbing by using a rubber, scraping by using a sharp object, you scrape out that whatever is there, and wiping out maybe using chemicals. If you're pouring in some chemicals on the ink, the color of the ink changes and it's no more visible. So these are the ways in which erasures are done. Now, on the basis of the type of erasing that is happening, we have two types of erasures. We have mechanical erasures and we have chemical erasures. Mechanical, basically rubbing and scraping. When we use a rubber or when we use a scraper, we do it physically. We do it mechanically. That's a mechanical erasure. There are no chemical reactions that take place over here. For chemical erasures, what we do, we pour in some chemicals which react with the molecules of the ink, and the color of the molecules turn out to be colorless, and that's why the ink no longer remains visible. That's when a chemical reaction is taking place. So that's a chemical erasure. If you see over here how the letters have been erased, and under infrared light, we'll study this in detail. What was previously written has been uh, detected. Mechanical erasure, from 8 it has been changed to 3, and this has been an example of chemical erasure. Okay, moving on to physical or mechanical or abrasion erasures. The definition, as the name suggests, it's basically removing something from the paper. Now, when we are, if you rub, your eraser on the paper, you will see that the quality of the paper becomes very thin. So that is one of the characteristic feature. Now suppose if you have written lightly with a very light pencil on a paper, then if you rub it off, you will see that the color of, the quality of the paper doesn't change much because you don't apply much of pressure over there. So that's an exception of physical or mechanical erasure. So this is what is erasures in detail, and if the sizing of the paper is damaged, the paper surface becomes very porous, and subsequent writing of the erased area with a fluid ink pen usually shows very feathered ink lines. How will you detect mechanical erasures? It can be detected either using oblique light or by microscope, or by subjecting the paper to iodine vapors, or by studying the portions where the paper has become thinned, or by studying when we erase very roughly the fibers of the paper come out. So if you study the fibers of the paper, that will also help in detecting mechanical erasures by using side lighting, direct lighting, and also the tint of ink. It also helps in detecting the mechanical erasures. See, there were three lines written and the middle line has been erased off. That's a mechanical erasure. Moving on to chemical erasure. So what is chemical erasure? As I said, it's adding on some chemical to the ink, where the chemical reacts with the ink and the color of the ink now becomes colorless, and that's why the ink is no more visible. What are the chemicals that can be added? It can be sodium hypochlorite, it can be potassium permanganate, it can be oxalic acid, it can be stannous chloride solution, or sodium tungstate. And the solvents, mainly the polar solvents such as tetrahydrofuran or acetone, they can be added to ballpoint pen inks, and in such cases the ink completely gets removed, completely or partially gets removed. How will you detect chemical erasures? And then, as I said, it's very important to study how to detect. You can detect using UV light rays. You can detect using the studying the you can study the quality of the paper. Wherever there have been chemicals used, that part of the paper will be a little degraded, so you can study that as well. You can study place this paper under fluorescence, and wherever there have been chemicals, those parts will glow up. You can also study under oblique light. That's a very crucial factor in determining the chemical erasures. And also pale yellow stain after the lapse of time. Examination under the microscope also reveals a lot of areas where there have been chemicals used. So basically the methods remain the same of studying chemical erasures. See, there was home depot 1500, whatever has been written, and when chemicals have been added on it, the ink has got decolorized. So it's a chemical erasure. The date was there 10503, which has been removed by adding chemicals. However, the letters are not visible under room light, but when we are throwing ultraviolet light on this note, the letters, the alpha numbers are visible. Then see, when we have used the letters have been turned decolorized by using certain chemicals, but when this has paper has been exposed, sorry, this is the paper where ink has been decolorized, and when this paper has been exposed under infrared light, the left side picture is the picture where it's showing how the letters, what were the letters. So under infrared light the letters were visible. Moving on to the next subtype of deletion, which is known as obliteration. Obliteration is basically covering whatever you have written, original writing, or the type, the typewritten or the printed with some ink or some opaque material. Okay, basically, suppose if I write that my name is Srinjoy Rai and then I scribble on it, so that the letter is no more visible. That's known as obliteration. Mistaken typewriting covered with cancellation marks. Cancellation marks basically include a stroke or something which indicates that this is cancelled off. Or maybe using a whitener, which is also known as correction fluid, that is known as obliteration. How will you determine obliteration? You then determine it by exposing it to blue-green light, or maybe exposing it under infrared light, or maybe using transmitted or blit lighting conditions. However, keep one thing in mind, that if the same inks used to write the original ink were used, then recovering whatever has been written previously is a little bit difficult. But if the ink composition, suppose I write with blue ink and then I strike it off with a black ink, then in that case determining or detecting what was previously written is much easier. This is what I have scribbled off, but then under IR light this becomes clearly visible. This is known as obliteration. How will you decipher obliteration? As I said, you can use a device which is known as VSC. We'll study that device in detail. We can use Starrett filters, we can use UV radiations, we can use IR light, we can throw light at different angles. In these ways we can determine obliteration. This is another example of obliteration. Moving on to the last two types, which are known as page substitution and overwriting. Page substitution, as I mentioned, it's basically removing one page and including another page over there. That is known as page substitution, and it can be determined by checking the watermarks. Another thing is indentation marks. What are indentation marks? Basically, suppose if you write something on a paper, you will see that the pressure which you have applied on the paper while you are writing, similar depressions have taken place in the next paper. Those are known as indentations. So check in the indentation marks, check in the watermarks. These are ways of detecting page substitution. Overwriting, if I write something on the top of another thing, that is known as overwriting. Checking the sequence of strokes, whether the pen was checking the pen pressure, whether the alphabets were thick or thin, throwing this paper under transmitted light, oblique light, UV light, IR light. These are the ways in detecting, these are the ways used to detect obliteration. And finally, moving on to the last topic, which is instruments used for deciphering tampered documents. The first is the hand magnifier. Using hand magnifier, you can view minute details in the paper at a very 3x, 4x, or 10x magnified level. That is the main purpose of hand magnifier. Stereo microscope, they help in studying the surface topography of an object. So suppose there is a paper, as we were discussing about erasures. So when we erase off paper, the fibers come out. So if I throw this paper under a stereo microscope, I will be able to study the surface topography, the surface structure of the paper. And by doing so, we will be able to determine the forgery. By using oblate, transmitted, and ultraviolet light examination. This is the third way. The fourth is electrostatic discharge apparatus, where basically the paper is put under in an electric gradient, where the charge settles down on portions which do not have the depressions, and and then a toner is applied, and using the toner and the electric charge, you can easily find out whatever was previously written. And the last is VSC1 and VSC2000, which is video spectral comparator. It checks out the it helps in deciphering or detecting forgery in a document. With that, we come to the end of the video. This was just an overview of what is tampering in documents. Hope this video was very insightful and knowledgeable for you all. Thank you so much.